Welcome to the podcast of Terrace Consulting. Here you will find information about the hospitality industry. News, opinion, debate, interviews, and anything related to hotels and the industry. My name is Pablo Torres. You can follow me on my website www.torresconsulting.co.uk, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Pablo Torres. It's the last week of May, and probably most hoteliers are asking themselves and each other the same question. When are you opening your hotel? Restrictions are easing down, especially in regions like Europe, and most governments already allow hotels, restaurants, and shops to open their premises. Question is, will they follow the government advice or will they wait? Why? Because there is a mix of factors here, with the main ones being the lack of business, that is, the prospect guests. Even if the law says that you are allowed to open, if travel restrictions remain in place, or there are compulsory quarantine laws in place for the next few weeks, who's going to travel for leisure then? Not many people can afford to spend 14 days locked at their destination when they reach it, plus another 14 days back home once they return. Therefore, with those travel restrictions in place, it's all about domestic travel. And that's a tricky one, as it will theoretically benefit mostly the countries whose inhabitants traditionally travel abroad for their holidays. In a study published by Skift a few days ago, China, Germany, and the UK will be the most benefited ones. However, I see this side of the study just theoretical. Because at least when it comes to Germany and the UK, most citizens travel abroad in the search of better weather for their holidays. So if they are to stay within their borders, I will question how many of them will enjoy the, I'm sorry for the word, staycation and spend as much at home as they currently are spending when they go abroad. Now, from that study, the other side of the coin are the countries which will be losing the highest amount of money. And that will be two main countries. That is, one is the US with $50 billion, and top one from the bottom would be Spain with over $52 billion. Actually, for Spain, the amount could be almost double, as many hotels are seasonal. And if travel restrictions are not lifted before the summer, many will just don't bother opening at the end of Q3. It will just not make financial sense. And we'll go back to that point in a second. Now, the other top loser is the US. And it's curious because when you listen to in webinars that are happening the last few days or weeks, and you listen to American experts, they're all currently boasting about how high the occupancies are in Florida and how their hotels are almost full in there lately. And I cannot question that. Obviously, there are numbers, there are facts. But what about the rest of the country? Last year, the US received 50 million foreign tourists. So even if all Americans were to stay within their borders this year, they will be very far to make up for the loss of those international travels. And now, about the opening and being it worth it or not. As I mentioned, for seasonal hotels in the Mediterranean Arch, which tend to open from Easter to around September or October, the lift of the restriction cannot come early enough. However, as mentioned, it might already be too late. They have to do their numbers and calculate the volume of business they will have. And that also is challenging, as forecasting now, with nothing on the books, no trend for the last few months, and nothing to compare to, as this crisis is really unique, it's very, very complicated. In any case, most hotels know what is their break-even point. In a paper published by Hotstats this week, it shows that globally it sits around 35 to 40% of occupancy, depending on the region and the type of hotel, if it's a luxury, full service, or a select service. But let's take that 35 or 40% minimum occupancy to reach your break-even point as a reference. Now, the question is for hotels, when will I reach that point? And all points into the same direction, the travel industry, the airline industry. Not only until the airlines are allowed to resume operations will opening hotels make sense in most markets. But for airlines, actually, it's the same challenge when it comes to lifting restrictions and the break-even point. The challenge for most of them is that their break-even point is much higher than the hotel's one. That is why they are planning to start operations slowly. So there was studies published by STR now in late May and focus on the European airlines that show that most of them will ramp up operations from July, from the beginning of Q3. But at levels that go from the 20% expected to open up operations from Lufthansa and Air France-KLM to the 50% expected from Ryanair and close by expected from British Airways and Iberia. So it will take the airlines until at least 2021 to resume operations to the levels pre-COVID-19. So assuming those flights are full, so we're talking about between 35 to 40% of all airline operations going back to business in 2020, which is roughly the same amount of occupancy that hotels will need to reach that break-even point. So it's really, really tight in that sense. Now, going back to the hotels and reopening, there are basically three decision points in there. First one will be to reopen as soon as restrictions are lifted, because I believe it's the right thing to do or because my owners force me to do so. Second one will be to reopen when I believe as a hotelier that it makes financial sense based on the expected forecast. That is, that I lose less money reopening than remaining closed. And the last one, the third option, is to wait, do your numbers, and open only when you believe you will reach break-even point. So what I've done is run a small poll on LinkedIn, which just came available in May. So you can run polls on the internet, on LinkedIn. And it was a low number of votes. It's not really representative. But most people have responded options 1 or 2. That is, opens once the authorities allow it. So kind of open ASAP with 41% of the votes. And open once forecast is fair. In other words, when I believe I will lose less money reopening than remaining closed. That'll be 37%. So that gives you 3/4 of the answers within these two replies. So based on those numbers and what I hear in different webinars from experts, most hotels will reopen, even though they will know that they're losing money, but they cannot really wait until that break-even point because they might be really far away. In any case, that's all a bit chicken and egg at the moment. Hoteliers, investors, owners, all looking at each other to see who makes the first move. Checking how things are going in other regions and to do and redo numbers. Then again, China, which is the one leading the path in this case, is a very different market. You cannot compare national different markets within Europe with a massive domestic markets like they have in China. It will take some courage to go back to operations in these circumstances, but we all must agree that it's a temporary thing. It's probably longer than we thought at the beginning, but still temporary. Investors have it clear, and they will continue pumping money into the industry, and there is loads of money waiting for the right time to reinvest, and the pipelines of the companies are also ready and waiting for the right time. So there is trust in the industry, no doubt of that, and that is very reassuring. It's just a matter of time. That was all for now. Hope you found it useful. Remember that you have more information on my website www.torresconsulting.co.uk, on LinkedIn, on YouTube and Twitter. Stay well. Goodbye for now.